Good evening, everyone. Today I want to talk to you about something that feels safe, but is silently deadly, your comfort zone. It doesn't come with alarms. It doesn't shout. It simply wraps itself around you and whispers, stay here. Don't try too hard. Don't risk too much. Don't dream too big. It buries your purpose. It numbs your hunger. And slowly it kills your fire. You weren't born to play it safe. You were born to grow, to stretch, to evolve. Yet the comfort zone tricks you. It offers peace while stealing progress. And the scariest part, you won't even notice it until years pass and you realize you've only existed, never truly lived. Comfort breeds stagnation is a powerful truth that applies to every area of life. Mental and physical, emotional, and even spiritual. When a person gets too comfortable, they unconsciously begin to slow down. Not just in action, but in growth, in thinking, in dreaming. Comfort gives a false sense of security, like a warm room with no windows. It feels safe, but it keeps you from seeing what's possible outside. You stop asking questions, stop taking risks, and stop challenging yourself. Eventually, the hunger for more fades away and you begin to settle for good enough. Every goal you've ever had, it lives just beyond the edge of your comfort. Every fear you avoid, it's the very doorway to your freedom. This stagnation doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle, slow, and quiet. One day you decide not to try something new because it feels hard. The next day, you avoid a conversation that could stretch you. Then you turn down an opportunity because it might disrupt your routine. Before you know it, the person you could have become is just a distant idea, buried beneath excuses and hesitation. Growth demands discomfort. Muscles grow by tearing. Skills sharpened by being tested. Wisdom is gained through failure and reflection. But comfort resists all of that. It tells you to avoid pain, avoid risk, avoid change. And in doing so, it also tells you to avoid growth. When you're in a comfort zone, you're not forced to adapt. You're not pushed to improve. You're not driven to learn. And over time, this lack of pressure creates decay. Your creativity dims. Your ambition shrinks. Your discipline weakens. Life becomes a routine, and routines without purpose become ruts. You wake up, go through the motions, and go to bed not because you're content, but because you've forgotten what it feels like to be alive and excited about something. You settle not because you're satisfied, but because you're scared of the unknown. Fear is the comfort zone's silent partner. It hides behind every easy choice. It makes you overvalue safety and undervalue growth. It convinces you that trying something new is dangerous, when in reality, staying the same is far more harmful in the long run. The world is constantly evolving, opportunities shift, industries change, people move forward, and if you're standing still, you're actually falling behind. You can't grow and stay comfortable at the same time. Growth requires resistance. It demands that you stretch your mind, your skills, your patience, and your perspective. It asks for the courage to be uncomfortable, to fail, to look foolish, to not have all the answers. And only those who are willing to be uncomfortable get to experience the transformation that growth brings. Fear disguises itself as comfort is one of the most deceptive truths in human behavior. On the surface, comfort looks harmless. It feels like peace, like safety, like relief from struggle. But very often, what we call comfort is not real contentment. It's fear wearing a mask. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, and even fear of success can all lead a person to seek out a version of life that feels calm, predictable, and easy. But beneath that ease lies paralysis. We avoid risk not because we're satisfied, but because we're scared. Even relationships suffer when comfort becomes the goal. We stop listening deeply. We stop communicating honestly. We stop showing up with presence and intention. We take people for granted because the relationship feels secure. But security without effort leads to emotional distance. The same principle applies to careers. Once you stop learning, stop improving, stop challenging yourself, you become replaceable. Not because you're not talented, but because talent without growth is temporary. Stagnation is never neutral. It slowly erodes what you once worked hard to build. Passion fades, vision blurs, and the light in your eyes starts to dim. Not from failure, but from choosing ease over evolution. Comfort tricks you into believing that standing still is safe. But in a world that never stops moving, standing still is just a slow form of dying. Growth may be painful, but it brings progress. Comfort may be easy, but it demands a heavy price, the price of your potential. Growth requires movement, and movement always invites resistance. Fear knows this. So instead of confronting the fear, we dress it up as wisdom. We say things like, I just like my routine, or I'm not that ambitious, or maybe that path isn't for me. But deep down, we know the truth. We're not choosing comfort because it fulfills us. We're choosing it because fear has convinced us that discomfort equals danger. The mind is powerful, and it can build entire belief systems around protecting itself from risks, but the cost is high. It's the cost of purpose, passion, and progress. Fear rarely announces itself boldly. It doesn't say, I'm fear and I'm here to stop you. Instead, it whispers things that sound wise and reasonable. It says, maybe now's not the right time. It says, you're not ready yet. It says, play it safe, you don't want to mess this up. These thoughts wrap themselves in logic, but they're rooted in insecurity. And because they seem practical, we accept them without question. We convince ourselves that staying where we are is the smart choice. We call it patience. We call it stability. But often it's just fear holding the wheel. Many people don't chase their dreams because fear tells them it's better to wait. They stay in jobs they hate, relationships that don't grow, routines that drain their soul, not because they're happy, but because they're comfortable. Comfort becomes a hiding place. It becomes a shelter from the storms we're afraid to face, but it also becomes a cage. It holds us back from discovering what we're truly capable of. Every time we shrink away from a challenge, every time we say no to an opportunity because it feels unfamiliar, we reinforce the illusion that safety lies in staying the same. Fear uses comfort as camouflage because it knows we are more likely to settle for ease than face uncertainty. It doesn't care if we miss our potential. It only cares about keeping us safe, even if that safety is an illusion. We start saying no to growth, not because we don't want it, but because we're scared of what it demands. We avoid hard conversations, new beginnings, bold decisions, not because they're wrong, but because they're uncomfortable. In doing so, we trade the possibility of something greater for the familiarity of something smaller. And every time we do that, we shrink a little more. The most dangerous thing about fear disguised as comfort is that it's subtle. It doesn't feel like running away. It feels like being smart. It feels like being responsible. It feels like protecting yourself. But in reality, it's just delaying the life you were meant to live. Fear in disguise doesn't push you into panic. It rocks you to sleep. It tells you that mediocrity is enough, that average is acceptable, that dreaming is for someone else. And before long, you start to believe it. You begin to call fear your friend, comfort your guide, and safety your goal. Everything meaningful lies outside your comfort zone. It's more than a motivational quote. It is a truth that echoes across every success story, every life-changing decision, and every transformation that has ever occurred. The comfort zone, while familiar and easy, is a place of maintenance, not movement. It's where routines are safe, risks are minimal, and the stakes feel low. But it is also where dreams are shelved, talents go unused, and potential remains locked away. Meaning is not born from repetition, it's born from challenge. And challenge only begins when you step beyond what you already know and do. The comfort zone offers convenience, but meaning requires effort. A life of meaning demands that you confront fear, embrace uncertainty, and engage in struggle. It's in that process, the stretching of limits, the moments of doubt, the courage to continue, that depth and fulfillment are discovered. When you do things you've never done, go places you've never gone, and face fears you've avoided, you begin to uncover new sides of yourself. You find resilience you didn't know you had. You gain wisdom that can't be taught in ease. You develop empathy through hardship, strength through trial, and clarity through confusion. These are not things handed to you while you remain in comfort. They are earned in the fires of growth. The comfort zone limits not only our achievements, but also our sense of self. It creates a false boundary around what we think we're capable of. People often say, that's just not me, or I could never do that. But those beliefs are not based on truth. They're based on the limits they've accepted. Once you step out and face what scares you, you realize that those limits were never real. They were imagined walls built by fear, by past experiences, by the voices of others, or by your own doubts. Breaking through those walls is not just about doing more, it's about becoming more. Leading often wears the mask of difficulty. Starting a business, standing up for your beliefs, moving to a new city, committing to a relationship, breaking a toxic habit. These are all decisions that require discomfort, and yet they are the very moments people remember when they describe the turning points of their lives. No one looks back on their life and feels proud of the times they played it safe. The stories that inspired us, the ones we tell others, the ones we carry in our hearts, are always about the moments we were brave enough to step outside what was easy. Everything that holds long-term meaning, growth, purpose, contribution, mastery, love, legacy, it all requires sacrifice. It requires you to endure discomfort, to fail, to get back up, and to keep going. If it were easy, everyone would live meaningful lives by default. But it's not easy, and that's what makes it valuable. The struggle adds weight to the achievement. The pain adds perspective to the purpose. The risk adds richness to the reward. You cannot separate meaning from discomfort, because discomfort is the doorway to transformation. Choosing to step outside your comfort zone is choosing to live intentionally. It means you're no longer satisfied with just existing. You want to evolve. You're no longer content with just fitting in. You want to stand out. And in doing so, you give yourself the chance to experience what life is truly about. The comfort zone will always offer you safety, but the cost is high. It costs you passion, adventure, discovery, and growth. It's only when you step into the unknown, into the place where failure is possible, but growth is certain, that you begin to experience a life that feels worth living. Comfort now, regret later, is a quiet warning that echoes through every missed opportunity, every delayed decision, and every unpursued dream. In the moment, comfort feels like relief. It feels like avoiding stress, saving energy, or protecting yourself from failure. But comfort, when chosen repeatedly over growth, eventually leads to a heavy sense of regret. That regret rarely shows up immediately. It waits. It hides behind temporary happiness and short-term pleasure. But as time passes, it begins to surface in subtle ways through restlessness, dissatisfaction, and a haunting sense of what if.